Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
It's never too early to set expectations and goals for your child's education. The UA College Savings Plan provides opportunities that can help you reach your educational savings goals. Save in Alaska. Study anywhere. There is more information available by calling 1-888, the number 4, and then Alaska. This message sponsored by the UA College Savings Plan.
The National Weather Service.
Hello again, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us here at KAKM for this Thursday's edition of Alaska Weather. On the satellite imagery from yesterday, we had low pressure off the southeast coast and moisture here moving northward, brought the snow in across south central Alaska on up to the northwest, and a pretty good break out to the southwest from Cook Inlet on out across the southeast Bering Sea. Then this system here pulling northwestward again over the central Aleutians with the low center right there, kind of backing to the west in the front, and a fair amount of rain moving into the precipitation moving into the eastern Aleutians. And then for today, you can see that's pulled back to the west of Adak there, spinning and actually kind of dropping a little bit to the south, and still a lot of moisture moving in over the southeast Bering Sea, but beginning to break out a little bit here along the Alaska Peninsula and then into some more clouds up to the north into Bristol Bay. Breaking out here is that upper level trough slips up to the north, taking the areas of flurries and light snow with it here into the Tanana Valley with some moisture back to the northwest across the Koyukuk and up into the areas of the North Slope. Otherwise, we had a weakening low here, keeping some showers in across the southeast coast throughout the day today, but beginning to scatter out a little bit or become not so quite numerous in the showers down that way, and even beginning to end down to the south. And pretty good conditions here for the North Gulf Coast, although here in the clear areas inland, some areas of dense fog forming. Palmer down to less than a quarter-mile visibility this afternoon, and they're pretty well socked in fog there, up there in the Madanuska Valley. And again, some breaks over Prince William Sound. That low pressure area now just weakened into a weak trough here, keeping some scattered showers across the southeast coast and pretty isolated on the eastern North Gulf Coast areas. And this trough right through here kind of indicating the position of the upper level trough axis there. So along and to the north of that is where most of the clouds and the light snow are occurring there from the eastern Tanana Valley areas over to about Fairbanks and northward, just some areas of scattered showers or light snow, and nothing that's really amounting to too much. And also a little bit of moisture and fog there on the western Seward Peninsula areas. And then we had just some real isolated moisture here over the Bristol Bay area, but southeast winds with this front elongated across the eastern Aleutians there, anywhere from 25 to 45 miles per hour from southwest Kodiak Island all the way out to the eastern Aleutians, Alaska Peninsula, up to the Pribilof Islands, with the main rain area here from the peninsula out to the eastern Aleutian areas, Nikolsky, and especially Dutch Harbor, where they picked up nearly an inch of rain in the last 24 hours. Actually, an inch and a half of rain in the last 24 hours. Otherwise, both Juneau and Sitka had over an inch of rain over the same 24-hour period. Today, with contrasting that just 0.02 of an inch falling at St. George, and maybe 1/4 of an inch there at Falls Pass. So kind of a narrow band of precipitation here, and again things letting up across the southeast coast, becoming much lighter and more scattered. And the forecast for tonight is that trend's going to continue. Still again at some scattered rain and snow showers over the north, but drying out areas down to the south. Still have a chance of showers here along the south coast of the Kenai Peninsula back into Kodiak Island due to that east-southeast flow coming off the Gulf there, and a lot of moisture streaming northwestward. But the more continuous rain and fog and drizzle will be along the Alaska Peninsula, and still a chance of some moisture into the eastern Aleutians. Otherwise, areas of low clouds and fog, Cook Inlet, Matanuska Valley, maybe even the Susitna Valley later on tonight. Otherwise, the interior, most of the interior looking pretty fair. That trough continuing to shift up to the north and a little bit to the northeast there. So some clouds and flurries again from Toka Northway up to the north and then back to the northwest to about the western Arctic coast. Winds here beginning to increase later tonight. In fact, storm warnings are in the forecast by midnight here for the south side of the Alaska Peninsula back to the east, and then winds will also be on the increase there for Bristol Bay, and no change in the wind pattern up over the Yukon and Kuskokwim Delta areas, staying out of the east at about 15 to 25 miles an hour in the windiest areas, and snow showers and gale force northerlies out there over the western Aleutians. With moving on to tomorrow's forecast for Friday, it looks pretty good here. Just should be dry. Whether there's this much clearing remains to be seen here across the southeast coast. It'll definitely be a dry day tomorrow with the approach of this front kind of pushing a break in as this area of moisture slides up to the north. Still a chance of some early precipitation, maybe around Skagway, possibly Haines, but mainly from the passes to the north. And then again, scattered showers, the Kenai Peninsula coast, rain and wind, Kodiak Island, storm warnings there along the east side of Kodiak Island tomorrow, east winds 50 knots. So you could see gusts of 60, 65 miles per hour blowing across the Kodiak Island area, as well as the Alaska Peninsula, the front edging northward. Winds will be at their strongest during the day tomorrow there. Also pretty windy but dry in Bristol Bay. And those offshore winds keeping the clouds off the coast. Should see some pretty good VFR from Nunivak Island up to Savunga, maybe even through the Bering Strait. And then we still have some leftover moisture up here. Upper level trough kind of still parked up over the northwest interior areas. So looks for some mostly cloudy skies with just some areas of flurries, possibly patchy fog as well along the Arctic coast. And then back out to the west, that trough continues to shift back to the west there, and the winds will be diminishing here for Adak and Atka with scattered snow showers, windier, colder, and snowier back towards Shimia. Looking ahead to Saturday, that front right near Kodiak Island, but the winds coming down here, the gradient relaxing, and also for the peninsula, still occasionally wet, but winds will be diminishing there as well from the storm force levels that you'll see tomorrow and later tonight. Pretty windy conditions, northeast winds across just about all of the Bering Sea here, right up to St. Lawrence Island, even up to the northwest coast, and then lighter winds for the central and eastern Arctic coast. Still some areas of moisture, possible flurries there over the north central interior areas, but generally cloud free except for maybe some low stuff still lingering here in the valleys of south central Alaska, possibly Prince William Sound, and then some flurries continue there. Some of this moisture working back in toward the upper Tanana Valley, and then rain and wind for the southeast coast as that front kind of pushes into the southern areas and then pulls back right across Sitka. So pretty wet conditions, or a chance of rain and snow all the way up to Skagway. And again, that keeping Kodiak Island wet as well. Looking at temperatures down across the Panhandle today, again, upper 30s to mid 40s, 44 both at Sitka and down at Klawock, with 43 at Heidelberg and Annette, 42 over at Petersburg, with Juneau right at 39, 34 in Yakutat, that same temperature matched at Valdez, with 20s here through Cook Inlet down into about the Homer area at 28 degrees, 30 this afternoon at Kodiak, 18 in Talkeetna, up at Chulitna is 25, with Copper River Basin, Gulkana had 14, Northway, or actually Tok at 15 above, 10 above at Delta, and -4 at Fairbanks, -3 there at Tanana, with Fort Yukon with some snow pushing a little above 0 this afternoon, then back down to 11 below at Sagwan, otherwise -10 at Kaktovik, Barter Island. A little below 0 here across much of the Arctic coast and rising back into the teens to lower 20s with that 22-degree reading at Kivalina and 21 at Point Hope. Then kind of a range in temperatures there along the Seward Peninsula, White Mountain at 25, Nome down to 7, and a 21 at Unalakleet. Amonak at 18, St. Mary's at 16, and then back to the east here on the Kuskokwim Valley, McGrath at 1 above, and 16 over at Bethel. Then back into the 20s along the southwest coast from the Koryak at 27 degrees, just 3 degrees above 0 at Savunga this afternoon. And for the Pribilofs, both St. Paul and St. George, 35 degrees, a 31 out at Shimia. Mid-30s, pretty nice day. Mostly sunny skies, light winds, both at Adak and Atka. And 43 at Unalaska, upper 30s and lower 40s for the peninsula. Mid-20s to mid-30s up over Bristol Bay. Looking at the lows for tonight, 30s here across all of the Panhandle, and then right near the freeze mark there, both at Cordova and Yakutat. Otherwise, dropping down into the single numbers and teens across south central Alaska, but staying above 0 or above freezing at Kodiak. Dropping a little below 0 through the Copper River Basin, of course into the central interior, 10 to 15 below forecast lows. Same thing for the North Slope, Arctic coast. And a little cooler now, dropping down at least below 10 degrees across the Kuskokwim Delta areas, with 30s for the Alaska Peninsula and the Aleutians. Highs tomorrow, 30s to lower 40s for the Aleutians. Same thing for the peninsula, lower 40s for Kodiak Island, and 30s to mid 40s for the southeast coast. Mostly in the 20s, south central Alaska for the highs staying below freezing, and a little above 0 through the Tanana Valley, with the coldest areas up over the North Slope and the Arctic coast, where temperatures will be running from 0 to 15 below, and 20s for the south coast of the Seward Peninsula. Flying weather, pretty good VFR through the interior tomorrow, except we have the isolated fog and low clouds here in the Cook Inlet area, in the Sitna Matanuska Valley. But with that moisture, leftover moisture, areas of marginal VFR from the 40-mile country there back across the upper Yukon Valley, Arctic coast, North Slope, marginal VFR at times throughout the day across the entire area. And this area kind of lifting northward, could be in over the northern Panhandle there, northern Lynn Canal area, but that'll be retreating back to the north throughout the day. The remainder of the southeast coast should see good VFR tomorrow. Marginal VFR there through Kodiak Island. At the IFR, that moisture coming northwestward there to the south side of the Alaska Peninsula. But from about the Pribilofs on north through the Bering Strait should be pretty good VFR, and just areas of marginal VFR out here over the Aleutians, with the exception of some IFR in and around Nikolsky. For passes, Anatuvik, marginal VFR with VFR on the south entrance, and again marginal conditions up to the north through the pass. Same forecast for Adigan, and for both Lake Clark and Merrill, good VFR tomorrow. Same forecast for Rainy, open as well. Windy VFR, Isabel VFR, as well as Mentasta, and for Tanita looking VFR. Portage though starting out marginal, becoming VFR by at least the afternoon. Chilkoot and White, marginal VFR early on, becoming VFR with freezing levels 2,000 feet here up across the Kuskokwim Delta, and then kind of back across the eastern Aleutian areas there, hugging the coastline onto the east and then down across the Panhandle. Icing possibilities there with the moisture coming up from the southwest to north, or southeast to northwest, to about Kodiak Island, across the peninsula to the eastern Aleutians, 2,000 to 14,000 feet in that area there, light to very isolated moderate rime icing, and possibility of some areas of light icing up there in the north in the shaded areas, and then also out here mostly over the Bering Sea, some of that catching the Pribilofs and maybe even the Atka area. Looking at the upper level wind flow charts here at 33,000 feet, not much flow over Alaska. We've got east winds, but only at about 30 knots there coming across the Alaska Peninsula. Main jet well to the south, and then kind of splitting here with this branch cutting in south of Dixon Entrance. So pretty light winds again at the jet stream level across the southeast coast and just about all of mainland Alaska. Easterly winds, a different story. 9,000-foot winds are a different story. Out of the east, 30 to 40 knots, increasing to as high as 70 knots there across southern Kodiak Island, 50-knot winds in across Bristol Bay, and much lighter here over the southeast interior. Southeast 10 to 15 along the Panhandle, same thing up along the Arctic coast as well. Then you pick up to about 25 knots near St. Lawrence Island, and pretty good winds coming around, and a narrow band of northwesterlies at about 40 knots there west of Adak to about Kiska Island. 3,000-foot winds, again pretty strong here. Easterlies across the southern Gulf, North Gulf coast only at about 10 to 15 knots, and pretty light in over the southeast interior on into the Yukon, down along the Panhandle. 25 to 30 knot winds off the southeast coast. Pretty light here even up to the Arctic coastal areas with these 50 to 65 knot winds across the Alaska Peninsula to south of Kodiak Island. Pretty brisk winds over the northern Bering Sea up to 35 knots, turning southeast, south and southeast again, that narrow band between Kiska and Adak at about 40 knots. Turbulence-wise, with those strong winds, could be severe for small aircraft below about 4,000 feet here, southern Kodiak Island, and at least a fair portion of the Alaska Peninsula. Otherwise, occasional widespread moderate turbulence here, Yukon Delta, just about all of the southeast Bering Sea, including the Pribilofs on down to the eastern Aleutians, but smooth conditions from the Arctic coast southward over the eastern interior into the Gulf of Alaska, smooth over all of the Panhandle. And after the break, Stargazer, I'll be back with a look at the marine forecasts.
It's a two bears, two dog night.
Hey there, stargazers. I'm James Albury, director of the Kika Silva Pla Planetarium in Gainesville, Florida.
And I'm Dean Regas, astronomer from the Cincinnati Observatory. We're here to help you find your way around the sky. Every winter, you could find two bears and two dogs in the stars.
That's right, Dean. The bears are called Ursa Major and Ursa Minor, while the dogs are Canis Major and Canis Minor.
Each pair of constellations is visible in different parts of the sky, and we can show you tricks to finding them easily.
Let's show you. Okay, we have our sky set for 9:30 p.m. anytime this week facing north. We're going to start by finding the two bears in the sky, Ursa Major and Ursa Minor. One is really big, bright, and easy to find, while the other is smaller, fainter, and almost impossible to find.
But before you go looking for bear shapes in the stars, let's start simple. A little to the northeast, you'll find one of the most recognizable star shapes in the sky. It's standing on its handle, as it has done every winter evening for thousands of years. It's the Big Dipper.
Now, the Big Dipper is not an official constellation. It's more of an unofficial constellation we call an asterism. The Big Dipper is only part of the larger constellation Ursa Major, the Great Bear.
Wow, that's a big bear. And although it might be tough to imagine a giant bear with a head, paws, and claws up there, just remember that the Big Dipper marks the big bear's rear end and tail.
You can use the Big Dipper to find the Little Bear. Connect the dots on the two stars at the end of the spoon, what we call the pointer stars, and continue that line to the left. You'll run smack dab into a star of similar brightness. This is Polaris, aka the North Star, and it marks the end of the asterism commonly called the Little Dipper, or the tip of the tail for the constellation Ursa Minor, the Little Bear.
The two bears are not always in this configuration, and as the night moves on, the Big Bear circles with the Little Bear around one focal point, the North Star. Around and around they go. Now we're facing southeast at 9:30 p.m., and this is the area of the sky where the two dogs live. With a little help, you can find them even easier than the two bears. First, look higher in the sky for the second most recognizable stars in the sky. 3 stars in a row, Orion's belt. The other stars mark his shoulders, feet, and head, but this isn't Orion's show, so let's get back to the dogs.
You can use Orion's belt stars as pointers just like the stars in the Big Dipper. Connect the dots on these stars and continue the line down and to the left. You'll come to the brightest star in the sky, Sirius, who twinkles, shimmers, and flashes all sorts of colors when it's low in the sky.
Sirius marks the nose of the big dog constellation Canis Major. Sirius is a star larger and hotter than our sun and shines really bright. because it's one of the closest stars to us at only 8.8 light years away.
That's still like 50 trillion miles, but some of Orion's stars are 50 to 100 times farther than Sirius.
To find the little dog, look up and to the left of Sirius and you'll find another bright star called Procyon. Procyon is part of the little dog constellation Canis Minor. Aw, what a cute little doggy.
Canis Minor is not as impressive as his bigger brother. Actually, the tiny constellation only has 2 stars when you include nearby Gamesa. How do you picture a dog in just 2 stars?
It must be a hot dog. So now you know how to find 2 bears and 2 dogs among the evening skies this January.
Ursa Major and Ursa Minor are in the northern sky after dark with the Big Dipper acting as your guide.
And Canis Major and Canis Minor hanging out in the southeastern sky with Orion's belt pointing the way.
Check them out all winter long as you keep looking up.
Welcome back. Well, this is today's sea ice analysis, and it's starting to expand again. And for the forecast for the next 5 days or through Monday is for the areas here west of St. Lawrence Island, it's going to expand southwestward 25 to 35 nautical miles. And then here, this area is expected to expand west-southwest at 15 to 25 nautical miles. And there'll even be some expansion of the ice even into Kuskokwim Bay, due to winds now will become northeast and eventually more northerly through the next 5 days. And for the southeast coast, southeast winds there up to 35 knots on the south coast, small craft advisories for the north coast, and north 20 for Lynn Canal, dropping back to about 15 there around Stevens Passage, and Clarence Strait, southeast 25. For Saturday, no change here for Clarence Strait, but a big increase up here to the north. Gale force northerlies there for northern Lynn Canal and 30 knots for Stevens Passage. And we've got southeasterly gales for just about all the coastline here, turning more easterly up to the north. And for the Kodiak Island tomorrow, with that front just to the south, east winds 50 knots, good gales here through Shelikof Strait. Minimum gales for the Barren Islands and small craft advisories for the North Gulf Coast. Just 15 knots for Prince William Sound and northern Cook Inlet, but south of the Forelands, 25 knots. And then for Saturday, small craft advisories again here, southern Cook Inlet, Kamishak Bay, and gales continue for Shelikof Strait and minimum gales now for Kodiak Island back up across the Barrens, and east-northeasterlies at 30 knots for the North Gulf Coast, with those seas running 17 to 20 feet. Northeast winds picking up a little bit for Prince William Sound at about 20. And we've got gale force northeasterlies there for Bristol Bay, becoming strong gales here on the Bering Sea side of the peninsula. Storm warnings on the south side there from Sitkinak all the way to Cape Sarachev. And then for Saturday, northeasterlies dropping off to about 40 knots here, with the seas starting to come down but still running at about 22 feet. Northeast gales for Bristol Bay, northeast 40 there for the Alaska Peninsula. And for the Fox Islands tomorrow, gale force northeasterlies as well at 40 knots with small craft advisories into the central Aleutians. And then that area right through here west of Adak, again over to about Amchitka or Kiska, running north at 35 knots. Then we've got small craft advisories here for just about all the Aleutians. North to northwest from Adak westward, and then northeasterlies 30 to 35 knots for the eastern Aleutians, and those seas running 17 to 18 feet. And for the southwest coast, well, northeast winds across all of the Bering Sea, northeasterly gales with the exception of the areas here north of Nunivak Island. Well, there'll be brisk wind, or actually small craft advisories there, and then seas here running up to 15 feet from the Pribilofs up into the northern Bering Sea. For Saturday, winds become more northerly, about 35 knots, so staying pretty strong here. And that'll be pulling eventually some colder air in, helping advance the ice edge there. Northeast 30 knots for the Pribilofs and northeasterlies south of Nunivak Island. For the Arctic coast on the east side, easterly winds 15 to 20 knots, northeast 20 knots for the central coast, then dropping back a shade there for the west side, and here from Wales up to Cape Beaufort, northeast 15 to 20 knots. Then those increase considerably on Saturday with gale force northerlies there from Wales to Cape Thompson, and then northeast 35 knots over to Cape Beaufort. First wind advisories on the western coast, and then gradually diminishing here as you head eastward down to about 15 knots from the east-northeast. And looking at tonight's forecast again, pretty good here through much of the interior, other than just some clouds and flurries here over on the east side and up to the north along that trough axis. Pretty dry from the North Gulf Coast, continuing to lose the moisture there over the Panhandle, but staying cloudy and occasionally wet there for Kodiak Island. Storm force winds coming back into the picture toward midnight and after for the Alaska Peninsula. We'll see for tomorrow that expands up to Kodiak Island with those strong easterlies with rain heaviest here along the peninsula, lighter up toward the Kenai Peninsula. Dry for the North Gulf Coast, and could be a fair amount of sun across the Panhandle tomorrow with dry conditions. Just some flurries maybe with some areas of fog up along the Arctic coast with fair conditions out into the eastern Bering Sea. And then for Saturday, everything kind of tilts. Winds become a little more northerly. The northerly component increases here, but basically northeasterlies from the Alaska Peninsula right up into the Chukchi Sea with rain from Kodiak Island in across the southeast coast. Well, that's a look at the weather. Thanks for joining us.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.